Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to The Other Side of Addiction. I'm your host, Al Richards, and gosh, we've got some new stuff going on here, and apologize for our background, but we are doing some remodeling. So here in the next few shows, you're going to see some pretty cool stuff go up behind us. But we have a brand new full-time co-host who have you seen on the show as a guest co-host before, but now he is on full-time. JD.
Yeah, happy to be here, guys. And again, thank you so much, Al and Brad, for having me and the opportunity and the goals and ambitions and dreams that we strive to help as many people as we possibly can. So I'm excited to be here.
Amen to that. I mean, yeah, we just kind of, JD and I, we met quite a few years ago, which I think we've told that story. We don't want to take a lot of time on that. But JD, thank you for being here, and thank you for believing in what we're doing and stepping into Lori's spot. I just spoke with Lori a couple days ago, and she's off running with her dreams, and told her whatever we can do to help her, we're here to help her, because that's what she wants to do. She wants to get the word out and help others. So we've also got a special guest co-host, Charity.
Hey, Al.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's
Such
great.
An honor.
I reached out to her when I didn't know for sure if we were going to have a full-time co-host, and I'm like, hey, would you like to come in as a guest co-host? And I mean, she didn't even hesitate. It was like, boom, yeah.
Yes, it was an instant. Oh, yes, I'm in.
Yeah, so thank you so much for being here.
I love what you're doing here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, today we have a very special guest, and lovely lady out of Colorado. So she's on Zoom. We haven't been able to get her here in the studio, but hey, this is just as good. We have Vanessa. Thank you so much for being here, Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've genuinely been looking forward to it since the minute we booked it.
Yeah, and you and I, we kind of met each other through the Tribe of Giants, right?
That is right. Yeah, it's always funny. You know, you may have experienced this in the podcast world, but once you have a show of your own, it's like people just flood into your life from all directions. So sometimes I'm like, wait, how did we meet again?
Yeah.
I love it. Our orbits crossed and they stayed connected.
Yes, and that is so true. And it's been happening. I mean, really. And so just to share a little bit about Vanessa, she is a certified health coach, is certified in the transformational coaching method and master transformational coaching method, as well as 10 years of coaching experience. She has coached hundreds of people across a range of professions, from executive level leaders. See, I told you I'd be screwing something up. I already set myself up. Entrepreneurs, professional coaches, therapists, and waitresses. That one, waitresses.
Yep.
Wow. I would not have thought that job description would be in there.
And you know, the reason I put it in there is because I think the misconception about, I don't know if it's coaching in general or just me as a coach, is that it's only for people who are already like really like high performers. And when we think high performer, we think like high powered. And to me, high performer and high power have nothing to do with each other. And I love that, you know, I was a waitress forever, and I needed a different level of access to support and growth and a different kind of thinking. And so I intentionally put that in there because the work I do, I mean, I can do great work with somebody who's already killing it, and I can do madly inspiring work with someone who's absolutely struggling.
Wow. Now, all of us need coaching. I mean, even in professional sports, I mean, these guys made it, whatever sport it is that they're in, gymnastics or football or baseball. So you know they've got the talent, they're there, but yet they still have a coach. And then usually those coaches that coach them have a coach, correct?
Yeah, I mean, life coaching itself was born from the world of athletics.
Oh, now that I did not know.
How interesting. I didn't know that either.
I don't think I'm making that up, but if I am...
I'm going to Google it right now.
Hold on. I'm on this.
Well, let me say, in my mind, it was born from the world of athletics, and I rebirthed it from the world of athletics because, you know, if you think about the way a professional athlete is coached, it's not really about, it's about becoming better, but it's not about repairing some sense of deep inherent flawedness. It's about tweaking performance to get a better outcome. And to me, if we're talking about dealing with addiction from that perspective, it's mind-blowing gold.
Wow.
Because if we look at the way that we, at least I'm gonna say we, but I'm speaking about me and my experience and my work with people in the past. It's so deeply rooted in shame, and shame is the I am bad. But a professional athlete isn't saying I am bad at football. They might not be getting the outcome they want in terms of their game performance, but they're not coming back. Oh, maybe I should just retire. You know, we're looking more intricately at how were you moving? What were the tweaks? What were the shifts that created this outcome? And I think that when you take that perspective into changing as a human and changing as a person, be it healing from addiction or anything else, it's a game changer because we're taking us out of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I've heard you talk a lot about this in some of your podcasts that you do. You had a gentleman on your show not too long ago, and was his name O? Because that's all I saw on the thing. O.
That's what he goes by. His name is Orrin Harris, but he goes by O.
Okay, because I was still even watching through the podcast, and I'm like, did I miss his name somewhere? But then I just saw O up on there. But he was talking about magic. And I found that very fascinating, of magic, of just how you're looking at things. I mean, how you're thinking of things. And a lot of the stuff that was shared on there, I'm like, yeah, I definitely need to do more of that. And to me, what I heard him say also falls into the addiction part of things, of how people perceive themselves. And yeah, you want to talk a little bit more on that?
Yeah, can I ask though? I'd love to hear the connection that you made to addiction on that, because I think it would be fascinating, and then I can jump off that if that's okay.
Well, it's just so while my wife was, going through her battle, just the way she was, she basically looked at her life as being completely over, and the way she looked at herself. She looked at herself as worthless. No one liked her. Life was always going to be this way. Nothing was going to change. But then when I was hearing O talk about, and I'm trying to remember how the heck he put it, but basically you are the magic. The magic is out there, but you literally are the magic. You're the one that makes the changes, and you can make those changes without you even really knowing that you're making those changes.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of fell into that, because I've gone to a lot of AA meetings and I've heard a lot of people talk, and it seems like they figured out what O figured out. It's like just one day they woke up and they realized, I'll just say it, they were the shit. They had it, right? So that's why I can compare the two together. I hope I'm not off base there, but...
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think how I would kind of say the same thing is when O was talking about we are magic, what he was saying is no matter what you're experiencing, you're creating it. So you can create an experience of worthlessness in yourself, or you can create an experience of incredible self-worth. Neither one is right or wrong or good or bad. But we wake up when we realize that either way, we are the ones creating the experience. You're magic either way. We tend to relate magic only to positivity.
Yeah.
That's true.
When I talk about the Practical Magic Show, sometimes I ask my guests, what's the dark magic? Because we're magic. You can't not be magic, even if you try. You might not know you're magic, but everybody is. How you are applying and experiencing your own magic, that's really the question. So when we are struggling and suffering in a world of addiction, I want to be careful with how I say this too, because I think addiction, both in my experience, I can talk about my backstory a little bit, is in essence extreme loneliness and an absolute disconnection from your own power.
Yes.
No, I believe that.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, Charity, you
I
could
feel
probably
that.
elaborate on that, right?
I feel that.
That's the whole I got.
it's a complete disconnect from yourself. Like, you don't even know who you are anymore. You have no idea what direction you're going, what to do, how to do it. You talk about, I relate to it as, I learned it as I am always the common denominator. But in that state of addiction, that was devastating to me. I was that disconnected from myself and from my own spirit and my own soul. I had no idea who I was, where I was going, what I wanted to do. And I'm still figuring out so much of this and still having awakening after awakening. And it's always this coming back to, okay, where am I in this? But yeah, it's challenging, and it's so easy to backslide into those old patterns because it's not solid yet.
Yeah.
Not for me. And I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm finding I'm not alone, even though in the moment you feel just complete and utter despair, complete disconnection.
And I think that's why addiction is such a hard cycle to break, because the more despair we feel, the more disconnected we feel, the more shame we experience, the more we retreat.
Yes.
And the more we retreat, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. Yes. Where the connection, and because there's no, in my experience, there's no place we feel more alive and worthy than when we are in genuine connection with another human being.
Agreed.
Irrespective of the outcome of that connection. And we like to really, as a culture, we like to equate success and achievement with self-worth, which is an empty pursuit. But it's when we feel connected to another human being that we experience on an embodied level our sense of worthiness. So addiction is such a trap because we feel worthless because of our addiction, and then we pull back further where love and connection is the thing that actually pulls us out of it. I don't know one person who's healed from addiction without connection.
Yeah, you're in a state of isolation, and to self-isolate is so easy. I still struggle with that. It is so difficult for me to have the courage to reach out and say, hey, I'm having a hard time, or to even to express something on social media, because there's so much shame involved in everything that led up to that moment in time where I was like, I have to do something about this. I can't do this anymore.
Man, this is some good stuff already. We've only been in the show here like 10 minutes. And, I mean, things are like pumping. I can feel the energy
I'm over
already.
here going, I feel
yeah. Yeah. If I could see auras, I bet that all be shining really bright right now.
Oh, it's glowing.
Vanessa, what got you into doing what you're doing? I mean, did you just wake up one day and go, you know what, life's going to change and I want to change people and this is what I'm going to do? I mean, I know there's addiction in your past, with family members as well and that, but was that what drove you towards what you're doing, or did something just happen in your life where you're just going, you know what, I want to get out there and I want to do whatever I can to help people realize how awesome they are?
No.
Oh, okay.
I wish that was why. It was far more selfish than that.
Oh. All right.
I think if I really were to honestly look back and reflect on my life, I was born a deeply spiritual person. And I really do believe that my purpose, from which I became very disconnected and lost for a lot of my life, I came into this life a healer. There's no doubt. I'm an old soul. I can remember talking to God, in bed at 5 o'clock or 5 at night, like whatever bedtime was when you're 5. And I can just remember, like, there was no question that I was just in conversation. I can remember that. I can remember contemplating death and getting really sad, in bed at night. I've just been a really old soul from the time I was born. But then I grew up in a family with alcoholism and two very different kinds of alcoholism. So my dad was a really successful attorney, but struggled with, he was a functioning alcoholic, you know? So,
Okay.
but he would come home at night, he would disappear. That was it. Like, he was just drinking in the basement. My mom, on the other hand, is the most loving and caring and generous human being on the planet. Like, I claim I'm the most generous person I know, but it's from her, all of it. But her alcoholism was very different because she had a lot of hurt and stuff that she hadn't had the support to process from her childhood. So her drinking was much more disruptive. It was much more like, you know, loving mom to this like scary monster, you know, as a kid, right? It was just
wow.
night and day. And I didn't understand. I did not understand what was happening. I didn't know that was what was occurring. It was just like, whoa, hold on, what happened to mom? And so my life got rattled in a really profound way. And you know, it wasn't even for that many years. My dad, I think, drank for most of my life, but my mom, it was like this very short, intense pocket of time that I think just because of the nature of it and the intensity of it, it just kind of broke something in me for a long, long, long time. And my internalization of that was, life is not safe. I am not safe. And I couldn't have never articulated this, by the way. For most of my life, I just felt massive anxiety. I felt a constant presence of deep pain and anger that I didn't understand. And I felt an intense drive to be successful. At the same time, I felt like life to me felt like running as fast as I could while the ground crumbled under my feet just as I took another step. Like, that's what I just felt, scared all the time. And my reaction to being scared was to take massive action and try to be successful. I was trying to succeed my way out of that fear. And so this is kind of a very long-winded answer to your question, but what led me here was actually a desire for like intense amounts of money and success, because I thought that would save me.
Right.
And it wasn't until I started working with a coach who said, you're a workaholic. And I don't mean that in the sense that we toss it around in our culture, like we're a culture of workaholics, but he was like, I mean, you're a fucking addict.
Wow.
And you need to look at the fact that you are and I had never because workaholism, right? That's the most acceptable form of addiction in our culture, that we almost like put it on a pedestal. But I think it's a very dangerous.
Well, people will say, you know, I mean, talking about workaholic, you know, I've been there where you bury yourself in your job for one, like you got, you know, those fears keeping that crumbling ground from falling out from underneath you. But when you bury yourself in work and you have nothing else, you know, that's, you put yourself there, that success, that determination. I mean, the stuff that you're saying right now, Vanessa, is almost like you're like reflecting to me as I am right now. Like,
yeah. Well, and you just touched on it too, Vanessa. It's almost like when we tell somebody, or somebody says to us, you're a workaholic, it's almost like we just got put on the highest pedestal. Yeah, it's like, yeah, you're damn right I am. And I'm kicking ass.
I'm going to work out. I'm going to outwork these guys. Yeah, you watch this.
Yeah, I'm going to outdo your hours this week.
Yeah.
How do you like me now?
But you're destroying your own life.
You're
Literally.
you're still hollow. You're still devastated. You're still outrunning the hungry ghosts that are chasing you inside.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. And so for me, that's what at some point kind of kicked over. I won the game. I got really good at coaching. I got recognition. I made a bunch of money. I had a bunch of clients. I was very successful. And I still felt like, where's my prize? Where's my happiness? Where's my joy? Where's my life?
Wow.
And so it wasn't until I started to, and I had been coaching all along. Like coaching was something I kind of picked up along the way, where I was like, oh, wow, I really like this, super interesting. And oh, by the way, I can make a ton of money helping people. But like the helping people was very much an afterthought, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah,
it was like a satisfying way to make a ton of money. And it wasn't until I started to really make that internal shift that, you know, it's like the second half of my life, well, hopefully second 2/3, I'm 35. You know, the first half was about getting good at the game in a respectable way. The second 2/3 of my life are actually give a shit.
Yeah.
about myself and other people. Like it is. That's how I ended up here. It's like I'm coming back to my 5-year-old, what my 5-year-old already knew.
Well, that's amazing that you had that at such a young age, and then it took all these years for you to finally start seeing it and bringing it together.
So how long have you been coaching?
Since 2009.
Okay.
And I did start as a health coach, but it shifted along the way. And, it's interesting. I feel like I work with two kinds of people end up in my space. And it's some that have experienced like a lot of trauma or struggle with addiction, or, they just like can't access their power, or people who have mastered the game like I did, but they keep losing the game of happiness on the inside. And actually, they're really two sides of the same coin. So it evolves along the way from health coaching to this kind of coaching. And my health coaching was never about food anyway, so it really makes sense.
That's what I was going to say. In your bio, you said that, you would find yourself many times not talking about food. Other things would come out with your clients. When that started happening for you, where was that big shift and where you could see that you could help people a lot more?
It was kind of accidental, honestly. I was always aware of that, but I was self-conscious about it. So somebody would hire me to lose 20 pounds, but we'd end up talking about their relationship with their husband and their relationship with their parents. And we'd always end up in a healing space, for which I was really self-conscious because I thought, well, I'm supposed to be helping them with food. And then I stumbled into this transformational coaching method school. I did a short program with them, and they started talking about what drives human behavior. What are the core unconscious drivers of human behavior? And it all clicked into place for me. And I thought, oh, this is why I'm never talking about food with my clients, because nothing to do with that in the first place. And that just kind of kept unfolding for me in deeper and different ways, that ultimately it is about understanding what does drive us. And when we're disconnected from that, or that expression is dysfunctional, we end up in addictive patterns.
And how did I want to state this question? With a lot of the people that you worked with, so like a lot of people we've interviewed on this show, and a lot of people that I've even sat down and talked to that battle addictions, it always seems like it's some kind of childhood trauma. So people who are even just struggling with just life itself that you are helping, are you finding the same thing out, that there's something that happened in their life that just kind of, and they didn't even realize it, that it was happening to them, that they just woke up one day and, well, they wouldn't even know until they sat down with somebody like yourself to say, hey, this is what I've gathered. Do you see a lot of that?
So if I understand the question, are you asking that when I work with people, what we often find is that the source of their patterns go back to childhood?
Yes.
100% of the time.
Really, 100%.
Because what happens that we don't know, we don't come with a handbook, right? And so what happens is we go through our life unaware that it is not our circumstances and what happens to us that causes our pain.
Okay.
We think it is, because unconsciously, my mom drinks, I make the unconscious decision, I am not safe, life is not safe, no one can save me, no one can help me. Those are probably the 4 core ideas that I took from childhood that I didn't know I took. We don't know we're doing that. As human beings, we are constantly making meaning of our circumstances. It's how we process our life, but we don't know we're doing that. And so what that looks like over the course of a lifetime is we end up with a personality, an identity. We end up with the way we see ourselves, the way we see the world, what we think is possible, what we think is impossible. And all of that it's not necessarily that it's rooted from trauma, because some of the people I work with have never experienced trauma, but they experience the same limitation.
Okay.
And so what we do is go back and we look at what did you make up from that circumstance? well, if I believe, and it makes sense, there's no judgment in it. Of course, a 5-year-old whose life is unstable and unpredictable is going to come to the conclusion that life is not safe. But if I zoom out of my house, and actually one of my greatest healing moments in my life was understanding that I had a core belief that life is not safe. And when I kind of went back internally and saw, where did that come from? I always had the same vision of me at home, my mom drinking, it being super scary, chaotic in my house. And then one day I was sitting in that vision, or that memory, and I zoomed out a little bit. And I could see that outside of my house, I grew up in this very, cute, nice neighborhood, that it was like a summer day and the trees were green and the sky was blue and that there were kids playing. And it wasn't that life wasn't safe, is that my life felt unsafe.
Got it.
And seeing that different perspective is, oh, wow, I can let go of that idea that life is unsafe and just acknowledge that this thing happened to me that felt horrible. And it's not to invalidate it, but it allows us to create more freedom to redesign who we want to be next. And the problem I think that most people have is that they're not even aware they're fish in water. You don't even see what you believe because it looks like reality. It's when you slow down to sit with someone like me or other coaches where you're like, oh, it didn't occur to me that this is a belief. I thought it just was.
Yeah. And you explained that so well, because right before I came to the studio, I stopped at a place that, a rehab place here in Utah, that they have this thrift store. And I met with the owner and one of the gals up there a couple days ago, and they were telling me about this thrift store. So it wasn't too far here from the studio, so I'm like, I'm going to stop in and check it out. So I went in there, and I knew of a gentleman to ask for, and this nice gentleman at front took me in the back and introduced me to this gentleman by the name of Robert, and we sat down and started talking. And during our conversation, he's like, yeah, I spent 12 years in prison, and, I grew up on the streets. Things were rough. I was a badass. People didn't mess with me, and he's just telling me all this story, and then he goes, then I have this chance to get out of prison, but to go into a program. And I go into this program, and that's where he meets the owner of this facility that has started this. And he goes, they start working with me, and they start teaching me things. And he goes, I had no clue there was life outside of the life that I was living, and it's because that's all I knew. Just like you said, like fish in water. I mean, he was just going around doing what the other fish were doing because that's all he flippin' knew. He had no clue that life could be the way it is where he's at now. Now he's been there, I think he said he's been there 13 years, and this place is just growing and exploding, and they're helping other people who've just gotten out of jail or prison. They've got these steps that they have to go through. They promote them. I mean, he was actually teasing the guy behind the cash register. He goes, see that guy right there, the cash register? I mean, we were like 10 feet away from this guy, and I'm like, yeah. And he tells me his name. I won't say who his name is, but he goes, yeah, he's like one of the biggest thieves here in Utah, and here he is running the cash register. And he starts laughing, and I'm like, okay. And the guy, I turn around and look at the guy, and he's laughing. He goes, yeah, we like to tease about it. But he goes, the guy's worked himself to that. So he's taken himself out of everything that he knew, and now he's in this different world. So your explanation nailed it. And it's weird that you said it that way after I just met this guy just an hour ago and was telling me his story.
I love that.
Yeah, that is awesome. You guys got something?
I relate to it, as you're explaining it, you're a fish in water. You have no idea that there's another world out there. For me, it was literally trapped in a box, literally in a dark box. I could not see anything outside of the circumstances that I grew up with, and honestly what I'm still working through right now and working to navigate away from. But it's like being stuck in a box, and there's just darkness that surrounds you, and you can't see that there's so much more. And for me, I created different identities to navigate the world, even as an adult, because I had no idea that there was something else. And it took that moment of saying, wow, this is my last drink, I'm done. I think I'm really done. And realizing, oh, there's all this stuff out there, and this isn't what I thought it was. Like, every illusion, every belief I had suddenly shattered, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Now it's pushing through to the next level and the next steps to figure out the new way of being. And what am I supposed to do now? And who do I talk to? And how do I figure this out? And I'm like, whoa, but it's scary and exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so powerful what happens the moment that it's like a veil, just poof, it's gone. And you're like, whoa.
Now you have somebody you
Sky.
can call.
I know. I will probably be reaching out to you.
It's to me, it's my, well, and if I might, like that idea of like, it was like a veil and it was like, poof, it's gone. I love that, because that's exactly what you experience. But what I'd love to add to that is that moment is a creation. And I think that is so important, because my coach used to say to me all the time, and oh my God, it pissed me off. And I spent 6 months fighting my coach before I let him coach me, but thank God for him. It's a choice. And I was like, well, how do you make the choice? And if it was a choice, I would make it, all that. And I think that choice is an evolution. It's an evolution of awareness. And so when we have that moment where the veil is lifted, it's like the veil is lifted, but the veil is actually attached to a string that you've been slowly pulling, for months or years at a time, and it finally comes above your eyes. And I think that's to me, why that's so important is because when I thought a choice was this thing you did, I was increasingly frustrated and judgmental of myself that I couldn't make it, not understanding that not only is a choice an evolution, it's also a massive act of surrender. I am choosing that I am not going to be this way anymore, even though I have no idea how on earth I'm going to make that happen.
Yes.
Surrender.
I am there right now.
Yeah, that's
again.
when you said that, all three of us got our notebooks. Right. It was like a domino effect. Okay, hey guys,
real quick,
go.
can. Sorry, so I've been just taking this all in just because there's a lot to relate, and I don't want to turn this into a coaching session by no means, because the information again is great.
Whatever you want.
So you talk about too, like you go back to, and I'm just relating because I grew up with parents in drugs, alcohol, other things, abusiveness, and my sister actually a year and a half ago passed away from essentially a large consumption of opioids. So with that, growing up in that setting and stuff and seeing the abuse and seeing it, at a young age, and the things happened to me too when I was younger, but I'm not carrying that on, but at a younger time too, like, I don't know if I'm just trying to relate, because you talk about back when you were 5 having these moments that the old soul, a purpose to help people and stuff. Like growing up and making decisions that I had to do to be able to help out my siblings and stuff, and had to be an adult sooner than I probably should have been. But ever since I was younger and all these problems were going around in the house, like I remember my mom's second marriage specifically, because my biological dad wasn't around for very long when I was little. He was abusive, he was an alcoholic, and I remember talking to people and being like, I don't ever want to be like that. I don't want to be like that guy. I want to be a good dad. I want to be good to, and I was saying that crap when I was in elementary school, and like, what kid thinks about that, right? Yeah. In that moment of those things, like, did you feel yourself going against the grain of your surroundings and felt like they held you back at points?
That's a really good question.
And like, how did you overcome those? Because that's been like my struggle and stuff. Like, I never fell into addiction, like with alcoholism or drugs, opioids, recreational, anything like that. Again, my perspectives changed definitely, because I used to be very hateful towards that kind of stuff and the people that did it, not understanding why. And as I've gotten older, I have, but like being in that environment, and now we're at where we're at, 32, and I started looking into self-help books and wanted to help people 12 years ago. I just never had the right guidance, the right people to help me in that direction. But have always known, like, I've wanted since I was little, I wanted to fix the problem I was in, and I couldn't grasp or get my hands around it when I was such a young kid. But it didn't. I had a choice, and I knew I had a choice that I could either be like my parents or not be like them, and I decided not to be like them. But it seems like all my circumstances, you can talk about the law of attraction, but it's like I continually attract those same issues that happen within my household into my own life, when like I'm trying to fix other people because I couldn't fix the problem that I was trying to fix before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. And so what I find is that when you grow up in an environment that creates such contrast, like, I don't ever want to be this, you almost become an accidental mirror of the opposite.
Yes.
Which is still, and I can slow this down, is still a version of the same thing.
Yes.
So in our efforts to be so not that, we become some other morphed expression of not that, which is still that. Does that make sense? I mean,
yeah, it's like a mutant, right?
So what we don't do is say, what would I like to be? What would I like my life to look like? Yeah. Because we don't, what we don't do, we don't say what I would like for my life is, some other thing, right? It's like, it's always a reflection of the opposite of what you experience. And what I started to call this is a trauma mirage. Not a life vision, it's a trauma mirage. It's like you create some abstract, vague, unreachable, felt thing you want for your life, but it's not a true vision created from a clean heart.
Right. So, I mean, and this just goes, and I'm sure with you being a transformational coach and that, you've done studies on quantum physics and law of attraction and levels of energy and stuff, and it's sometimes having these conversations, and then again, I want to thank you for this, but it comes to that mirroring of the environment and the surroundings that I was in as to where it is now. I'm just relating because it's the same thing, like law of attraction. It doesn't hear negative words. It doesn't hear things like that. All it hears is I want. So
it feels it.
Yeah.
It feels the vibration
and
of what you're
because of that, like having such frustration but a very big focus on not wanting that or being around it, obviously it's continued, and I want to help people, but it's like, again, like I said, it seemed like it was a trap because it's the same thing I went through with my parents, been married, divorced, and then my wife with now, she's an amazing lady and I love her, but we've had our issues and stuff too, where she's had problems with alcohol, and it was like I was picking out the ones like I couldn't fix this problem, I can fix this problem, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part 2 to that answer. I don't know if we want to take a break and come.
I think this is a great place to pull off and do the commercial break.
Sorry to make it feel, like I said, again, you've opened up things, and I don't want to.
No, well, that's what we're here for,
this is
right?
Fantastic.
Yeah, this is what we're here for.
This is great.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, guys. Stay tuned because, as Vanessa said, we got a part 2. So we'll be right back.
How do you start your morning? Start it with a cup of High Point coffee. Because no matter where you go or what you do, it's always better with coffee. High Point Coffee. What's your high point? Located on the corner of 7800 South and Redwood Road in West Jordan. And a special thanks goes out to our partners in Oxford, Mississippi.
This is Gregory, owner of Lift Up Concrete, proudly serving the Wasatch Front for the last 12 years, lifting sunken flatwork for both residential and commercial applications. Only fully trained professionals lifting concrete at your residence with the same quality of material and method used at every commercial job we ever do. Don't replace it, lift it. liftupconcrete.net, 801-792-4535. Contact us at liftupconcrete.net, or if you're looking for a complimentary quote, 801-792-4535. Again, 801-792-4535. Again, this is Gregory, Lift Up Concrete Lifting.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
All right, guys. Hey, welcome back to The Other Side of Addiction. Thanks for tuning in. Man, this first half of the show has been incredible. The information that has been shared. I will definitely be going back and going, because my brain's been spinning with all this information Vanessa's been given, and I've got to go back through and listen to this, because I know we've all been taking some notes. But hey, before we get started on part 2, as we were saying right before the break, I want to make sure to give a huge thank you to all our sponsors. High Point Coffee in West Jordan off 7800 South in Redwood. Steve, everybody there, thank you so much for your love, your kindness, and for believing in what we were doing here. Lift Up Concrete out of Kaysville, Utah. Gregory, Tosh, 2 amazing people. I love these guys to death. Just great. Thank you so much for your support. Serve Pro West Jordan, but we want to thank all the Serve Pros from Ogden all the way down to St. George. One of our newest supporters is USARA, Utah Support Advocates for Recovery Awareness. They have just came in to be big supporters of ours, and we were just here earlier just doing a commercial with Evan Dunn, so you will be seeing their commercials coming on pretty soon. Another one that just came in, again, guys, I am just shocked with the support we are getting. We have Computer Hospitals, and I don't have their address down right in front of me, but they're off like about 8400 South in State Street. These guys are incredible. Matter of fact, I think they got a new customer. Charity's going to give them a call, I think, on some computer issues that she has. And also the rest, I got a few more before we get going. We got my buddy Troy over at I Am Power Real Estate. Thank you so much. TJ McLeland, Fitness Realty. And we've got Advanced Business Books, who actually just came in. They are a bookkeeping company. Tatiana Rose, what a phenomenal young lady. I sat down and had coffee with her a couple days ago. This girl's incredible. Just had a great conversation. I think we were only supposed to meet for about an hour, and we ended up meeting for almost like 2 hours. We were just sharing a lot of stories. So, and also, last but not least, a huge thank you to Brad Neufeld, owner of Resilience Talk Network. Thank you so much. Again, he's going to give the thumbs up. We don't have the puppet on, though, today. Guys, thank you so much. Co-hosts, thank you. Our guest, again, none of this would be happening. See, I'm starting to get emotional already. None of this would be happening without everybody that's a part of this. This show is growing every week, and I'm just still in awe of the support and the kindness and the love that everybody's given us. So before I start slobbering like a little 2-year-old little baby here, Vanessa, we were talking about a part 2 with JD's question.
Well, before we go to that part 2, I have to just acknowledge, Al, that growth is your gratitude. You are so, I mean, we haven't known each other that long, but in the short time, and most of it has been through social media. So this is like this compliment and amplified times 1,000. Your graciousness and humility and groundedness are so magnetic that it doesn't surprise me for 1 second that plus your genuine and authentic, really, really authentic desire to help people, it doesn't surprise me for a second, and I can't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate it. My eyes are full of tears. I know you can't see that, but yeah, they have tears in them. So thank you so much, Vanessa.
I couldn't agree with her more.
Oh, thank you as well, Jeremy.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to part 2 before I really start crying really bad here.
Hang on, wait. I want to see this.
Oh, you've seen it before.
See, but he's welling up over here, and I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it.
No, with that again, I just want to give it, if I can, but again, thank you so much, Vanessa. But again, Al, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for us sitting down and having what was supposed to be, half-hour meeting to a few-hour meeting, and this friendship we developed. So you're an amazing man. So,
thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you. All right, Vanessa, let's get back to you. We don't have much longer, so we were talking about a part 2.
Yeah. So part 2, in reference to JD's question about, wanting so desperately to create a different future, but accidentally and kind of recreating a little bit better version of the past, is that in this, whether you are struggling with addiction yourself or you're struggling because you grew up with addiction, the heart of both are shame and pain.
Got it.
And so what we have to start to look at is, what am I experiencing? And how am I accidentally creating it? And so let me slow this down and give an example. So I had the experience that from my childhood that no one could help me. No one could understand me. No one could help me. And it honestly takes a level of awareness to even get clear on that in yourself. And so if you're not totally there where you can just go, what am I believing, right? Because you're a fish in water.
Right.
So you would look at, what am I experiencing? What do I keep getting in my relationships? What do I keep feeling from other people? Nobody cares about me. I have to take care of everyone. I have to fix everything. What are those recurring experiences that you keep having, the painful ones in your life?
I feel like I always got to carry the weight of the world.
I always got to carry the weight of the world. Exactly. So what we find is that, of course, you experience that if you look back at your life. So as a child, that was your unconscious response to your environment. And it was probably true. If you grew up with addiction, children who grow up in homes with addiction are parentified, meaning that you have to grow up way sooner than you should. That's its own thing to work through in itself. There's resentment, there's frustration, there's lots of anger, there's lots of grief involved in healing that. But of course, that was your experience. And I'm going to lean into something that's like a little bit edgy, and I say it from a place of empathy, experience, love, and no judgment. It was done to you as a child, but you are now doing it to yourself as an adult.
Correct.
So what we do is we take on the suffering and the addiction and we self-perpetuate it because it's what we know. You might be a fish in a swamp instead of a nice, beautiful tropical ocean, but at least you're swamp, right? You know the territory, so it's hard to let go of. So what we can start to do is, it really, really looks like I have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. But if we were to really slow that down and zoom in, what we'd find are places where you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders and you pick it up. Or places where it just feels safer and more comfortable to pick up the weight of the world on your shoulders instead of let somebody else have their experience. And so when I'll look at my own, when I started feeling like one of my other ones was I'm not allowed to have my experience. My experience always has to fall second to somebody else. Because when you grow up with addiction, that's true. There were consequences for me having my experience of anger towards my parents, towards my mother in particular. The next day, I would either get denied my reality and lied to. I would get yelled at and screamed at because it would be manipulated into some other argument, or I would be met with absolute fear because she was so sad and so full in shame herself, so that I was like, I'm not allowed to have my experience. And I just took that on. As an adult, especially with my mom, she's so wonderful. I've had to constantly push against that and lean into it and share, this is what I'm feeling right now. And it took a lot of work for me to work against that and share with her. I mean, I was in my late 20s to 30s before I could bring myself to have a conversation about the effect of my mom's addiction on me, because I was still protecting her from my experience, even though she wasn't even drinking anymore. So what I'm getting at is we have to look at the ways that we have now become imprisoned to our own ideas and find little tiny ways to challenge them in a very messy, imperfect way.
So with that, like when you confronting your mom, and I'm just going to relate in this aspect, obviously, did you have moments like when you got to that point that you wanted to talk to her about, again, opening up the way that it made you feel versus protecting her? Did you have moments of almost like, what's the right word? I don't want to put this out and be rude, but the victimized card?
Hell yeah. Yesterday. Literally. Yesterday. So my book came out, Tuesday.
What's it called?
It's called We Are One, How One Woman Reclaimed Her Identity Through Motherhood. It's actually a great book for anyone who struggles with addiction, because it's me working through my workaholism, and all those patterns. But there was some hard stuff I wrote in there about my mom. And that was me leaning into like, I'm allowed to have my experience. And some of it I shared with her, but some of it I was too afraid and being too victim minded to be able to like really communicate directly. So I kind of like held it like this. And then when she read it on release day, she had her totally legit, valid experience, which was like, holy shit, this is really painful to read. And I got upset with her for having that experience, because it was that whole messy thing. And then I had to step back and realize, of course she had that experience. She's a human being. Right. She cared deeply about me. She has her own experience of our life, her own story about our story. And I didn't give her any space to feel that. I didn't give us any space to talk about it, because I was still too trapped in my own mindset of like, I'm not allowed to have my experience, but over here I'm kind of claiming my experience, but in a really messy way. Right. And so I called her to say, hey, what'd you think of my book? And she was very loving and gracious, but still kind of like guarded. I had a really hard time not slipping back into, see, I knew I couldn't talk about it. See, I knew. And I had to consciously pull myself, and I was crying, and we were having this messy conversation. And then, as my emotions settled, I went back to her and I said, I can totally see the error of how I handled that, and I'm really sorry, and I love you. And I told her I was coming on the show and I wanted to talk about this, and she gave me so much wisdom and encouraged me so much, but it created a beautiful healing, but through this very messy process of like claiming and stepping in and out of victimhood. So moving out of this process is messy.
Right. And well, that's where I was asking, like on the victimizing, because again, we've all been that on the victim side, right? You know,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
why are you doing this to me? But also, too, at that moment, like when you had moments of confronting your mom, or you wanted to, because again, you're entitled to those emotions, you're entitled to those experiences and able to express yourself. When you confronted her at earlier times in the past, what was it that helped you in aspects? I mean, did you work it with your mom or with other clients? And again, keeping anonymous, obviously, but when people play the victim card and always it's this person's fault, it's this experience's fault, it's this, like, how do you get them to just come out, like, especially when you already know the truth? Like this, I'm just relating this because of experiences at home. It's like, I already know the truth. Like, it would be so much better if you just like, you know what, yeah, that's what happened. Great, I still love you. Respect's the same, you know, more respect actually, but it's always never can take ownership for it.
Love is the answer. What I mean by that is love is never judgmental. It never tries to get someone anywhere, despite how much they are wrong. Love is not always nice. My mom will tell you one of the most powerful moments of her healing journey was she called me one morning after she had been drinking, and there was this pattern that we were in where I was the one, I knew from a very young age, I knew the cycle of addiction was not just drinking and not drinking. The cycle of addiction is so much more nuanced than that. I abuse some, I feel some pain that I can't manage or face. I abuse a substance. I experience deep shame that people in my life are mad at me. I make a promise that I'll change. I think I'll change. I experience deep shame that I can't manage. I abuse a substance. So I intuitively got that there was and if you break a cycle one place, you break it everywhere. I just knew that young. So my mom would always have this extreme guilt and shame and apology and sort of manipulation the next morning that I would, okay, all right, I believe you. It's okay, I'm mad at you, but not, that whole dance.
Right.
I remember one day she called me and I said, Mom, I don't want to hear it. And this was not coming from anger. For the first time in my life, it was coming from love for myself and love for my mom. I don't want to hear it. I've accepted that you might never change. And that's okay. I love you anyway. I love you drunk. I love you sober, but I do not want this phone call ever again. And for me, it was kind of setting a boundary. But what it did for her was it was like, what do you mean you love me drunk? She could not, because shame is what drives all negative behavior. And shame cannot exist in the presence of love. It will try, it will fight for survival, it will escalate in manipulation and attack. But if you can ground yourself, I love you anyway, and that goes for yourself as much as it goes for anybody else, at some point, the addiction can't survive. Hopefully, as I'm so sorry to hear about your sister. My sister also committed suicide in 2017. Sometimes the addiction wins out, but so long as it doesn't, love is the only answer.
And I kind of started tearing up a little bit when you were talking about that, Vanessa, because it was like when my wife's drinking got so bad to where it was to the point where I literally had to kick her out of the house. As much as I loved her and as much as I feared for her, that time just had to happen. And I was angry because she was drunk, but also I was also finding that point in my life where I really needed to start taking care of me, because it had already taken me down a bad hole. But that's one of the things I think, when even after she came back, when she told me 2 weeks after I finally let her come back into the house, that she noticed a change in me. I still remember that day like it was yesterday, when she came up to me and she goes, "You're different. There's something different about you. You've changed." And I don't know if maybe she saw that love. Because before, when I'd kick her out, I got that pie thrown in my face I don't know how many flipping times. This is why I decided to go get more alcohol, because you kicked me out, and playing that victim game and stuff like that. But it was hard for her to fall back into that dark spot. I think when she was seeing the reason why I did what I did. As it took her some time for her brain to start computing, because she still had that alcoholic mind, but as she started seeing it, she knew the love was still there, that I always loved her. I didn't kick her out because I didn't love her anymore. I did it because I did love her. So
That gave me chills.
that was awesome what you said. Yeah. Charity, you got something to go on this, girl? 'Cause
Oh gosh, we could go on for hours.
unfortunately, we don't have
hours.
that.
I really relate to, your wife's perspective on it. And it takes some time before you start to see. For me, sobriety was an act of self-love. I had to find my way out of it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 1.5-year battle. It was a lot of falling off the wagon, a lot of struggle, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. And it all started with coming across some information from Brene Brown that had been sent to me years before, and it just kind of spiraled from there. But I relate to that because it takes time to recognize the love in it and to make the decision to press forward and say, in my situation, it was, I love myself enough to fight through this, whatever it takes, no matter how hard it gets. And man, the moment I spoke up, let me tell you, everything is blowing up in my world. One thing after another. To say that the forces have risen up against me would be an understatement. But I'm learning to sit with it and allow it to process and run its course. And then it always comes back to that love, because Vanessa, you're so right. Shame can't survive love. And the moment love enters the equation, even for a millisecond, that shame goes. It can't stay there. It's such a powerful thing.
And I'm so glad it was brought up that way, because I've heard that before in the past. It never resonated with me until today, and I don't know, maybe it's these awesome mics and these headphones. I don't
these
know,
are fabulous.
or the energy that's coming through. But I mean, when it was said, it gave me goosebumps, and I actually wrote it down. I never thought of it and that's exactly. I mean, it's spot on. Yeah. I don't even know what to say from it, because it's spot on.
And it hit me in a new way today too, because I have a situation that I've been going over and over. How am I going to approach this? Because this individual, there is no talking to them. There just isn't. I've come to that realization multiple attempts, and I'm white flag is in the air. So that really helped me, and it just hit in a new way today.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes is by Byron Katie, and she says, "Love kills everything that isn't love." And I just think that
I love Byron Katie.
Oh man, that woman. And I just think it's because one of my favorite, gosh, we could have like a whole conversation around this too, is like what love really is versus what love isn't. And I just, love is not this white fluffy bunny, right? Sometimes love is vicious and it's angry and it's intense.
Yes.
And I think that's, and kind of just along those lines, you mentioned love yourself enough, like sobriety is an act of self-love. But I also would add on to that a willingness to deeply feel your pain is a prerequisite to self is all
yes.
self-love.
And until you allow yourself to literally dive into the pit of the feeling,
not from a place of recycling it.
Yeah, not like I'm going to go into this, I'm going to feel every ounce of it and let it teach me.
Not fuel your story of victimhood, right? Like,
it's not to be the victim anymore. It's
fucking angry and so sad. And it's like, And here's how you know you're feeling pain in a way that frees you versus traps you. At the end of it, you feel clean.
Yes.
Versus
It's just, it's like,
Versus what?
justified.
Justified. Okay.
yes. Yes,
Wow.
it's just this sudden calm. It's like the ocean just went completely still. And you just go,
I guess I still need to work on some more.
I'm telling you, half my work with people is just teaching them how to feel emotions in a clean way. Like we don't learn it. We don't learn it.
Yeah, I take a lot of my emotions out at the gym in the morning.
Which is
and
productive.
taking deep breaths. I've been taking a lot of deep breaths today. So, guys, it's that time. I'm so bummed we got to end this a little bit. Oh, you just want to do a short break? Oh, okay, we're just going to do a quick break. So good, we still have more time. So I'm happy again. But yeah, this is some great stuff. So
Yeah.
Vanessa, when we come back, you have so much knowledge and so much experience. I definitely want to make sure our listeners know who you are, where they can get a hold of you, where they can find you. I mean, you've shared some stuff today that is just, it's blown me away. And I mean, yes, this is called The Other Side of Addiction, and not a lot of stuff about addiction was talked about, but it was, if that
Yes.
makes sense. Because even on the other side of the addiction, or those that are trying to get on the other side of addiction, all this information that Vanessa shared with us today and the questions that was asked, I mean, this is some killer stuff.
Well,
This is all part of it.
When you get through the side, and you get on that side of you've had the addiction, you get through it, and you finally break that chain. It's important to have this knowledge, because again, at the end of the day, if you ain't continually growing, you're dying. And
Yeah.
so having a coach, having mentors, having information, and submerging yourself in that stuff and being able to have the accessibility to it is very important to keep moving forward. Because without that stuff, you could fall into that trap and back into the habits, as you mentioned
Yes.
earlier, where it's very easy to go back into it. Even though you've made strides forward, you can have that moment of loneliness and shamefulness that just creeps up inside you. So it becomes almost like it's a conscious thing that you gotta, you're conscious that it's there, but no, love yourself more,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
and how easy you could, like you said, fall back. So we just did a show not too long ago. Gentleman came in who battled sex addiction, porn addiction, 2 decades worth, and he's 10 years now clean, but now his spouse is battling an addiction. And he talked about how people was thrashing on him, doing their best because they didn't understand it. And he's like, just leave me the hell alone. You don't know what you're talking about. Now he's on the other side, and now he's doing the same thing people were doing to him when he had his addiction. And he's really had to pull back and stop going, what the hell am I doing? I didn't like it when people were doing that to me, and now I'm doing it to my wife. So yeah, it's easy to fall back in that trap. So we're going to take a really quick break, and we'll be right back and have Vanessa share her information. So if any of our listeners need Vanessa's help, which I think all of us could use some Vanessa's help.
right?
Yes.
So-
Yeah, no, again, Vanessa, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, guys, we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Tamara K. Anderson, and I want to share something special with you. When our son Nathan was diagnosed with autism, I felt like the life we had expected for him was ripped away, and with it, my own heart shattered as well. It's very common for families to feel anger, pain, confusion, and anxiety when a child is diagnosed. This is where my book, Normal for Me, comes into play. It shares my story of learning to replace my pain with acceptance, peace, joy, and hope. Normal for Me has helped change many lives, and I'd like to give this book to as many families as possible. We've put together something I think is really special. My friends and listeners can order copies of my book at a significantly discounted price, and we will send them to families who have just had a child diagnosed with autism or another special needs diagnosis. We will put your name inside the cover so they will know someone out there loves them and wants to help. I will also sign each copy. You can order as little as one or as many as hundreds to be shared with others. So go to my website, tamarakanderson.com, and visit the store section for more information and to place your order. You can bless the lives of many families by sending them hope, love, and peace. Check it out today at tamarakanderson.com and help me spread hope to the world.
Welcome to the Resilience Talk Network. My name is Jay Walter, and I'm the host of Rebuilding, heard every weekday night from 6 to 7 p.m. You can listen in and learn how to face your fears, overcome obstacles, and make dreams a reality. So listen every weekday night from 6 to 7 p.m. right here on the Resilience Talk Network.
All right, welcome back to the other side of addiction with our special guest, Vanessa Broer.
That's it. Brewers.
Right,
Yep.
got it.
Scary last name.
Hey, now, one thing I forgot to ask, you're out of Colorado, right?
Yeah, I live just outside of Boulder.
Just right outside of Boulder.
But I'm not from here. I actually moved here in November from Pittsburgh. I grew up in Pittsburgh.
Oh, wow.
That's quite a distance.
Yeah, that's a huge move.
It is.
All right, so we're on the last leg of the show here. You have a couple things that you would like to share with us, and what are those?
So there's one is short, and I'll try to keep the other one short. But
Okay.
I think language is critically important. And some of the language used around addiction that I don't love are strides forward and falling back. And my mom articulated this really well when we talked yesterday. She says, I stopped thinking about it that way, 1 day sober, 10 days sober. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but she said, I started to think about it more like collecting days of freedom. Because every day without addiction is a day of freedom. And so, and this was a conversation we had one day. I said, stop referring to yourself as a recovering alcoholic. You're done. That label is like, you're just beyond that now.
Yeah.
And so I love that she said that yesterday, because use what serves you. But I don't think it serves when we feel like I was 8 months sober and now I'm back at zero, as in those 8 months were erased. And so however, not that everybody does think that way, but regardless of whatever change you're trying to make, like, don't dishonor the progress you've made when you experience yourself as having fallen back, because the same woman can't go to the same river twice, meaning that the river is always flowing and you are always changing. So if you have 8 months sober and you have a drink or you get wasted, you are still not the same person, because you have 8 months sobriety, accumulated days of freedom under your belt.
And I love, and I got to elaborate on this really quick so you can get to your next one. Again, that guest I was just talking about said that in his show. He's like, he remembers he went 3 days clean, and then he fell back. And then he went 5 days clean, and then he went back. And he was beating himself up every time that he fell back into the addiction. One day he finally realized that, hey, I was 5 days then. I just hit 7 days. I moved forward. And then all of a sudden one day it was 10. Then maybe it was 3 again. But then next time it was 15. So he just kept going. And that is such a good point, because that is one thing I did wrong, is being on the other side of addiction with my wife. She would get her 1 month chip, and then 2 weeks after she got her 1 month trip, she was wasted again. This went on and on and on and on. And I finally got all these chips one day, because she would always give me a chip. And I'm like, here, you can have this shit back. It didn't dawn on me till somebody that I talked to, who I thought was going to punch me right between the eyes when I said it, but she deserved every one of those damn chips.
Right.
To me, I didn't understand it. but she frickin' deserved it. And even though she went through 3 rehabs, 4 rehabs, 5 rehabs, total of 7 rehabs, it took me all those 7 times she went to rehab to realize she never stopped trying.
Yeah, she's a warrior.
She never stopped trying. She could have gave up after the second one or the third one or hell, the first one, but she never stopped trying. And that's where us on the other side of addiction, we're blind. We don't see that, but they deserve the pat on the back and the credit, because they're fighting a battle we have no clue what they're fighting. So thank you for saying that. So your other point.
Actually, that was a beautiful bridge to my second point, and I'm going to say it in a way that I am intentionally being provocative. Addiction deserves respect.
There you go.
Thank you.
And I don't mean that someone struggling with addiction deserves respect, though immense amounts for what you go through and you fight, and it's a battle 24/7. I mean, that deserves ultimate respect. I mean, the addiction itself deserves respect because it is there to protect you from pain that feels too hard to feel. Addiction is trying to love you in the best way that it can. And it is a destructive form of love. But when we see somebody, the worse they behave, the more pain they're in. The more they fall back, the more pain they're in. The drunker they are, the more pain they're in. And so when I had that perspective, it was like, I can respect your intention and up-level your method. I can respect your intention to protect you from pain and up-level your method. There's a better way to deal with it.
That's huge. Wow.
I love that. I'm over here tearing up.
Yeah, I think we both have tears in our eyes. So, Vanessa, you have so much great information and so much knowledge in this. I know there's got to be listeners out there that are just going, oh my hell, why haven't I thought of this? Or how the heck do I get a hold of this lady? How does somebody find you? How does somebody contact you if they would like to chat?
So easiest way is email, and that is Vanessa at vanessabrewerscoaching.com. I should really find another email address because my website, you can learn more about me. I have a book that just came out. It's called We Are One, How One Woman Reclaimed Her Identity Through Motherhood. You can find that anywhere books are sold. And I have a show called The Practical Magic Show on Facebook every Tuesday. So any of those places, but I'm very, very accessible. If you email me or Instagram message me or Facebook message me, I will answer, and it will be me.
Okay. Awesome. Now, I'm going to ask you a magic question here, too. How can we get a signed copy? Because do you sign all your copies or just special copies?
You give me your address, and they'll be in the mail tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool, because that is definitely one I want to read, because like you said, it helps on all sides, right? So go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'd be happy to come back anytime. This is amazing, and I haven't talked about this before in my work. I always talk about performance, and I've always deep down there's been like a what the hell are you doing, Vanessa? Like, talk about the real shit kind of thing. So I'm really grateful. This was a deeply aligned experience for me, and I would be happy to come back anytime.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah, we would definitely love to have you back. I mean, this has just been an incredible experience, and I don't think I've used this word today. I don't even remember which ones. And my wife watches the podcast. She goes, phenomenal. There we go. I got it in. I've been really paying attention to make sure I don't use phenomenal more than a couple times during the show. My wife's like, is that your new word? I'm like, what? She goes, phenomenal. You've said it 5 times already. I'm like, I have?
I agree.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal.
It is. Vanessa, again, my dear, thank you so much for your time. I mean, I can't even say enough. This show was just amazing. So your experience, your love, your energy, the spirit. I mean, I could feel the spirit even through the screen. It's here in our studio. So thank you so very much. I don't even know how else to say it, but yeah, just thank you. So
No, and thank you too again, Vanessa, not just for being here and again the guidance and information and being able to share your background and what you've been through, but thank you for the people that you have helped. I know it's meant a lot to a lot of people, and keep up what you're doing.
yeah.
The work matters.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Hey, thank you again to all our sponsors. You got something else, JD?
Yep, right before you finish off.
Okay.
Again, guys, everybody that's out there listening, again, if you got something out of this, you know somebody that needs to hear it, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, share it. This is how we're able to help people, is by being spread. And again, thank you everybody that's listening to this. So
Yeah, and get on Vanessa's sites too,
Yeah.
and like and share her stuff, because she's out there doing the same thing.
Yes.
She's sharing a lot of love and helping hundreds of people. So
The more we get everything out,
the better it is.
The better it is.
Yeah.
The better the movement.
Amen. I agree with that 100%. All right, guys. Thank you again to all our sponsors for your love, your kindness. Brad, thank you so much. Resilience Talk Network. And as we leave every show, I'm just going to leave you guys with this. Addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Recovery is giving up one thing for everything. Thank you, guys.